Lecture 22 is called The World Economy, New Patterns, Continuities and Changes here. The core and the peripheries that we've discussed at some length, these continue, or at least it's a good concept for us to continue to talk about. Allows us to organize this material a bit. Western Europe and the United States continue to export expensive consumer goods while importing cheaper raw materials from the periphery. The old core is now joined by Japan, South Korea, China, India. Old core now exports military hardware and expertise, financial services, consultants of all types. It also exports entertainment, movies, music, recreational activities, sports, and fashion. In the peripheries, we still have weaker governments. The peripheral countries still export commodities and cheaper goods to the core. There's a lower level of production here. Textiles, disposable goods. The peripheries continue in Latin America, Central America, Sub-Saharan Africa. The shifting core, with Asian powers now joining the core, the economic balance of power shifts eastward. East Asia has incorporated Western technology and creates their own as well. East Asia now is industrialized as the West. East Asia incorporates Western ideas and blends them with traditional culture, Confucianism, and so on. Things like group loyalty in Japan, collective decision-making, obedience to decisions. Some 20th century anomalies, political movements that have sought to gain economic advantage over others. Hitler's attempt at autarky across Europe in the 1940s, essentially colonizing Russia, attempting to turn it into a giant or a vast agricultural district for Germany. Stalin's socialism in one country, where the Soviets attempt to industrialize without outside experts. Remember that the Soviets are not impacted by the Great Depression the way much of the rest of the world is, because they do not participate in the market. Think of Mao Zedong's Great Leap Forward, where the urban people are forcibly moved into the countryside, an attempt to increase agricultural production to help with the modernization of China. Think about Japan's East Asia co-conspiracy, co-prosperity sphere, in World War II, again, the Japanese putting themselves at the center of an immense East Asian economic system. All these nations have since rejoined the world economy after seeking, at least temporarily, to strike out on their own. How about those nations that are trying to climb out of the periphery? Is a term used by economic historians, import substitution. This is where government and business will cooperate to produce items that will no longer have to be imported from the core. Things like cars and textiles and other things. These products are often protected by tariffs. The purpose is to reduce the dependency of these peripheral countries. We see this trend in Turkey and Iran, in Latin America, and in India. One essential product, oil, this has been used to break out of the periphery and shake off dependency by Middle Eastern countries. These Arabic nations have achieved some economic and political power this way through petroleum during the Cold War and afterwards. The idea is to develop local products that can compete with those products produced by the core, whether it's wine from France or fruits and vegetables from Chile or beef from Argentina, or textiles from India, or specialty items, computers, or energy, a way of lessening dependence and trying to shake off that peripheral status. Of course, China and India are going to be at the center of this movement into the 21st century. China has become the workshop of the world, yet it still pays low wages and it exploits labor. Here, the last great communist country exploits labor on a scale that dwarfs the earlier capitalist exploitation that they criticized. India plays a service sector role in the world economy, because English is a second language there, and English, of course, is the language of commerce around the world. China is now increasingly part of the core, obviously. India is traveling in that direction. So let's draw some conclusions here as we talk about the world economy. About 60% of the world's population is now involved in industrialization, urbanization, again, from an agricultural world to an industrial world. This compares to about 20% of the world population at the beginning of the 20th century that was involved in industrialization. Is there going to be an ideological challenge to this capitalist world order? Communism certainly appears dead, at least as any sort of dynamic ideological system. It appears to have run its course. Islam's rejection of Western culture, will this extend to the rejection of the world system of which they are at least a part? An increasingly socialistic world system, universal health care, which we seem to endlessly fight about in this country, universal education, minimum wages, again, ongoing political controversies in the West. Are we moving towards a more socialistic system with capitalism still as the bedrock, or are we going to return to the old capitalist jungle, as they used to call it, the survival of the fittest, where we bring social Darwinism in and apply it to nation states as opposed to organisms? Less purchasing power as the middle class shrinks, as it has been in the United States. Of course, less purchasing power means, in the long run, unemployment, closing factories. This system is dependent upon people consuming at ever-increasing rates. We have a greater number of poor people today, but they're informed. Are they going to become increasingly angry over their status as they get to look around to see how the other half lives? It's really too soon to predict these trends and where they're going, but we do need to at least be familiar with them. Thank you.